a lot of students have already filled this out and have started sending it to me. That's fine, but I am making some slight modifications to this lab. So just keep that in mind. That's one of the reasons that we have these pre-lab lectures or these pre-lab meetings, is so I can tell you, hey, we're going to do these activities and not those activities. Here are some slight modifications. It's not going to affect you in any way if you've already turned in the lab, but just note this is why we are meeting together in the evening before you do the lab, so we can talk about it. The pre-lab quiz for this one had a little bit to prepare for. The first question was just, did you come prepared? And that's a yes or no question, and I'm not going to dock you points if you said, no, I didn't read through the lab. That's up to you. I strongly recommend that you prepare for those pre-lab lectures, but if you choose not to prepare, that's on you. I'm not going to dock you points if you didn't prepare. I don't care. But there was one question on there that said, which levels of life can we see underneath the microscope? Does anybody want to chime in with some of their answers? What levels of life can we see underneath the compound light microscope? And I'll give you a hint. I listed them out for you. We have atoms, molecules, cells, organelles, atoms, molecules, organelles, cells, tissues, organs, organ systems, organisms. So which of those do you think we can see underneath the microscope?
I think organelles.
Yes, very good. You're going to see that tonight. When you look at the human cheek cell, the human kidney cell, all of those, you're going to be able to see individual organelles underneath the light microscope, which is awesome. It's so cool that we can actually see those structures. And I'm very disappointed that we're not getting the chance to do this in person, because one of my favorite parts of this lab is where you're actually going to take a scraping from your own cheek, and you can look at your own human cheek cells underneath the microscope, and you're going to see the nucleus. You're going to be able to see all of the different organelles that are found in the human cell. So yes, organelles, for sure we can see that. What else can we see under the compound light microscope? What about atoms? Can we see those under the microscope?
Molecules.
Yeah, what about atoms and molecules? Can we see those?
I'm not really sure.
No, we can't. They're going to be way too small. The microscope is not that powerful. The atomic level is actually too small to be seen by any mechanism. We only infer what we know about the atomic structure based on mathematical formulas and mathematical data. We've never actually seen an atom. Atoms are way too small to actually be seen by any device. Molecules are not that much bigger. Now, there are some molecules that are big enough that can be seen, but for the most part, they're not ever going to be seen underneath a microscope. Their molecules are just way too small. Organelles can be seen, and cells can be seen, and tissue samples can be seen, but we're never going to be able to see a full organ underneath a microscope. Organs are too big. Organ systems are too big. I had several students tell me that they could see organ systems. And we can study them by taking small cross sections of tissues and putting them underneath the microscope, but we can't put the entire digestive system under the microscope. It's just too big. We can't even put the whole stomach under the microscope. It's too big. So we can see tissues, but we can't ever see a whole organ or whole organ system. Same with an organism. Now, organisms, there are some organisms we can see under the microscope. What kinds of organisms could we see under a microscope?
An ant.
An ant, yeah, maybe. An ant is still going to be pretty big, but we could probably see them underneath the lowest setting for sure. So small organisms we can see. We can also see single cellular organisms. Remember in chapter 1, if you've already started going through chapter 1, we talked about how all organisms are going to be multicellular or single cellular. We as humans, we're multicellular, but there are a lot of single-celled organisms that we can see underneath the microscope. So I accepted organisms as an answer if you qualified it as a single-celled organism or a very small organism. So anyway, if you did not receive your full 5 points for this pre-lab section, it's because you included things that we can't see, like atoms and molecules or organs and organ systems. So if you received like a 4.5 out of 5, it's because you included things that don't belong on that list. And then finally, the last question, the only thing I wanted to say about this, I think based on the results I've seen so far, the vast majority of you either have a medical background or are going into the medical field. And I'm so excited to hear that, because I don't have a medical background. I don't. My background is in biochemistry. It's in laboratory research. I am very comfortable at the cellular level. I've taken a lot of anatomy and physiology courses, but I don't have a lot of practical application. So I'm very excited about having a class that has a medical background. I'm going to learn so much from you. Last time I taught this course, I learned so much from my students who were applying all of this in the medical field. So they were applying this in their professions. I know the anatomy from, you know, the human model and the cadaver standpoint. I don't know about it in the terms of health and care. So I'm very excited to see that a lot of you have a medical background or are going into the medical field. Hopefully we can learn a lot from each other, and there'll be a lot to apply from this course. All right, that's all I have to say about the pre-lab quiz. The next thing I want to do is go into the lab. Like I said, all of the links that you will need are going to be included here. I do have a tutorial video here included that's going to walk you through all the different parts of a microscope, and then also through the portion of the letter E. I also have a slide for the human cheek cell, kidney cell, sperm cell, skeletal muscle, and neuron cell image. I'm going to pull up this lab really quick, and I'm going to show you all of the parts that I want you to cover, and then what parts we're going to modify just slightly. So let me pull that up, switch us over. Here is our microscope and cells. You should be able to, by using the tutorial videos, answer all of the questions about the parts of the microscope. So you should be able to do this first activity. You should also be able to do this matching portion, along with the total magnification portion. Now here's where things get a little tricky. Because a lot of you are going to be just downloading this, working on this on your computer, it's not going to be conducive for drawing. If you would like to draw and label, great. Draw the letter E under various powers. Go for it. Those will be extra credit. So it's extra credit if you want to download this, draw it out, take a picture, email it to me, or you can, I don't know, maybe use Paint or get creative and put an image in here. Up to you. If you want to put an image in here, great, that'll be extra credit. When you're looking at the cheek cell membrane, again, this portion unfortunately is going to have to be extra credit as well. You can either copy and paste the cheek cell image, copy it in here and use little arrows to draw and label it, or you can draw it yourself, print this out, draw in there, and then take a picture of it and turn that in. So it's up to you. These 3 drawing sections will be extra credit if you choose to do them. The rest of the lab you should be able to do without any issues. Miscellaneous microscope questions, these you should be able to find in your lab. When you're identifying the parts of the animal cell, you might be able to find that in lab, but you should definitely be able to find all of the answers here in your textbook. And if you have any questions about particular organelles or what you're looking at, let me know and we can review it. Then you're going to match the organelle to their description. A lot of this is going to come from your textbook. And I know we haven't gotten there in our textbook just yet. Unfortunately, we're doing some of this all out of order, but your textbook in chapter 3, when it's talking about the different parts of the cell, is going to cover all of this. So if you want to look ahead to chapter 3, that's where you're going to get some really good information in there. Finally, this last activity, activity 2, sketching of the cells is extra credit, but you do need to identify the functions for each of these cells. That is 4 points. So under the kidney, tell me what the function is, and you can choose from these 4 options over here, so you don't need to make it up. So just for activity 2, filling in the functions is mandatory. Sketching is going to be extra credit. And I think that's all I have for this lab. Does anybody have any questions about what you're doing for this lab?